Hello everyone, today we're going to look at a game between Houdini 3 against Rybka 4.1 in the TCEC Season 15 Championship Bonus Tournament. And I think this is a good game to demonstrate how to destroy the Caro Kann, and Houdini demonstrates this perfectly. So it's definitely worth watching. So Houdini here is white, Rybka is black, and the book variation goes like this. So white plays e4, c6 from black, and we get into a Caro Kann, where we play e5 with white, bishop f5, knight to f3, e6 from black, bishop e2, knight d7, castles, and h6 for black. And this is the end of the book. So let's just look at this structure quickly. Black's got a very solid structure. The bishop on f5 is outside the black pawn chain, where every single pawn's on the white squares. h6 has given the bishop a retreating square, so black's in a very solid setup here. And it'll be very hard for white to break down, and very frustrating when you're actually up against something like this. So straight away, Houdini now plays a very interesting move. That's actually only been played 12 times when I've had a look at my database. So Houdini amazingly now plays c4. So maybe this is a new idea to deal with this type of position. Obviously this move looks dodgy, mainly due to the fact that now Rybka takes on c4, and now white's forced to take on c4. So what this does is actually leaves a hole on d5, and makes white move their bishop twice in the opening. So surely this can't be good for white. But let's just see what happens. So here black plays knight e7, maybe hoping to jump into d5. White plays knight c3. And of course black now jumps into d5 with the knight. So what happens if white takes this? Well, if knight takes d5 here, c takes d5 will follow. Maybe bishop d3, and after an exchange, bishop e7. This is a very even game and pretty solid for black still. I mean, black's got no issues whatsoever in this position. So I think taking on d5 would be a mistake. Instead here Houdini plays bishop to d3, dropping the bishop back, perhaps wasting another tempo, but it counteracts black's white squared bishop. Rybka now took on d3, the queen recaptures from Houdini, and black plays bishop to e7, developing their final piece. So again, black's got no problems here. But now I think white plays another interesting move. He plays rook to d1, supporting this d4 square. And this allows the queen to manoeuvre around to black's king side, as we'll see in the game. Rybka castles, and now Houdini plays queen to e4, preparing to move the queen to g4 and set up a knight attack. Black has the option of taking on c3 here. If knight takes c3, b takes c3, queen a5 looks like it threatens c3. But actually white can play queen g4 here and attack h6 with the bishop, because the g7 pawn is pinned. If king h7, queen e4, king e8 and rook d3. Again, white's got no problems here, and it's quite an even game still. But white does have the edge here. In the game, Rybka now plays queen a5 though, attacking the knight on c3 twice. And again, Houdini just ignores this. Queen g4, threatening to take on h6. King h7 is played to avoid this. And now white plays knight to e4, getting away from the knight on d5 and the queen on a5. And threatens to bring the knight into the game and attack on the king side. Rybka plays queen to b5, and Houdini here drops his queen back to h3, threatening to play maybe knight g5 or bishop g5, because the h6 pawn is now pinned against this queen. A move that was recommended here was actually c5, opening things up on the other side of the board. If white plays knight fg5, black's got some options here. If king g8, white could now play knight takes e6, interestingly. And after f takes e6, queen takes e6, white's going to win back the d5 knight and have a few pawns extra, so this would be terrible for black. So after knight fg5, king g8 isn't really an option. Instead king h8 must be played, and white could drop the knight back to f3, and now bishop h6 is on the cards. If the king goes back to h7, white can now add their other knight into g5 with check, and if king h8, play queen h5, harassing this f7 pawn. If king g8 here, again white could just drop the knight back to e4, and bishop takes h6 is on the cards again. And if black finally goes king h7 again, white could take on c5, and after bishop takes c5, just play calmly with b3. White actually has a slight advantage here due to his attack on the king side, so this could have been played. Here king h7 doesn't have to be played. Black could opt for c takes d4 here, but then white can just play bishop takes h6, and as you'll see, g takes h6, queen takes h6. There's a massive threat now with one of the knights jumping into g5, so this would be disastrous for black. So here c5 was an option, but it's very risky for black, and I don't think it does them any favours. So instead Rybka actually opted for queen e2 here, attacking the rook on d1 and attacking the knights on e4. But Houdini found an ingenious move now, bishop g5. So the h6 pawn is still pinned, and it protects the rook on d1 with the rook on a1. So linking these two rooks together. But what happens if queen takes e4 here? Well, if queen takes e4, bishop takes e7 can be played. And if knight takes e7, knight g5 check, and the king and queen are forked. And it's game over pretty much. And even here, after bishop takes e7, the rook is also threatened and knight g5 is threatened, so black's in a busted position. If the bishop captures on g5 in this position, then knight fg5 works as well with check. Again, the h6 pawn is pinned. King g8, rook d2, queen a6, and white can play two moves here. They can play knight to f3, which leads to a very pleasant position. White's certainly in no trouble here. Or they could play knight takes e6 to go for the interesting option. If f takes e6, queen takes e6 check, and rook f7 to protect the knight, but then knight d6, rook af8, and white can play g3, or at some point white will have to recapture on f7 with the knight and have two knights for the rook. So it's very interesting, but it's actually given by Stockfish 10 as equal, so very interesting. After bishop g5 though, Rybka now plays king g8, getting off this pin from the queen, and Houdini harasses even more. He plays rook to e1, attacking the queen and defending the knight on e4. Rybka takes on b2, and Houdini now plays bishop takes h6 with a devastating attack. Rybka plays g takes h6, and Houdini captures on h6 with the queen. But now we see that knight fg5, knight eg5 have got massive threats against the black king. In the game, Rybka now plays rook fb8, trying to give the king some space, but it's too little too late. Here I think Houdini can actually just play knight fg5. After bishop takes g5, knight takes g5, queen h7 is a massive threat. And if knight f8, rook a d1, and rook d3 ideas are coming, knight to e4 ideas are on the table. And even though black's a piece up, he's actually in a terrible position. In the game though, I think Houdini played it better. h4 was played by Houdini, just leading to a more solid and stable victory basically. Queen c2 is played, maybe trying to defend this h7 square with the queen, and knight fg5 is played, bishop takes g5, and now Houdini actually takes with the h pawn, threatening knight f6 and also g6 ideas. With the knight on e4, the queen on c2 is still blocked. Rybka tries to defend with knight to f8, and Houdini plays rook ac1, trying to move this queen off this diagonal. And here Rybka is now forced just to take on e4, so Rybka plays queen takes knight, and this is pretty much game over already. After rook takes e4, Rybka plays knight g6, and Houdini just plays f4. If Rybka takes on f4 with this knight, just rook f1, and if the knight goes back, just rook f6, where a sacrifice is coming. If knight takes f6, g takes f6, and that's unstoppable. The queen will move to g7 with checkmate. So after f4, I think we can all agree that black's no longer in this game, and it's just a matter of time now. Knight g7 is played by black, Houdini plays g4, Rybka plays c5, d takes c5 from Houdini, rook d8, and king f2, knight c3, and Houdini just captures on c3. After rook d2, rook e2, Rybka resigns, and it's game over after 31 moves. So this is an example of how Houdini just destroyed the Caro Kann and made it look very easy as well. And this looked like it was the key position. Queen e2 actually looked like a mistake, and maybe c5 was the better option here. But after queen e2 and just bishop g5, this is now winning for Houdini. Even though Rybka tries to defend by going backwards, just after rook e1, queen takes b2, and this bishop takes h6 move, Houdini has cracked open Rybka's defences with ease. And these two knights on f3 and e4 are very nicely placed now just to deliver the killer blow to Black's position. So there's an example of how to crack open the Caro Kann. I hope this game serves you well, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate a like, and if you want to watch more chess videos in the future, please subscribe to the channel because it really helps. And I hopefully will bring you more chess videos in the future that will help your chess. See you next time.